They are a certain type of individual that doesn't want to be around anybody else. It's not like them. And you don't see how this can become segregation? CSULA referred to the dorm as themed living community and pointed to the University of California, Berkeley, Stanford, and other CSU campuses, including Fullerton and Northridge, were having similar themed housing. I'm ashamed of Northridge. That's where I graduated from. How dare you? I'm ashamed of Northridge. Ashamed of them. Huh. The housing is for people who are interested in issues facing the African American community on campus. So that's the story that broke. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that something? 2016. Let me think back for a second. Let's go back in time. Ooh, that's my going back in time music. Ooh, ooh. It's really, we're going way back in time. Ooh, ooh, ooh. All right, now we're back in the 1960s. Oh, does this name ring a bell? Robert Kennedy? Oh. Does this name ring a bell? President John F. Kennedy? Oh, maybe if those names don't ring a bell for you, how about Malcolm X? Oh, uh, um, how about Muhammad Ali? How about the great football player Jim Brown? How about somebody I can't stand? I can't stand at all, Jesse Jackson. And that other guy, that other criminal, Al Sharpton. Oh, wait a minute. What about all those people who were teenagers and young people then marching in the civil rights movement of all colors? Black, white, green, brown, purple, pink, lavender. What? Wait. What about all the new legislation? What about President Lyndon B. Johnson, who created the Great Society to help with education? Even though I think the Great Society created what we have today in a demise in our social order, but nevertheless, he tried to do something right. Wait. Whoa. What about all of the fine attorneys and judges and people in our legal system and our police and our security agencies who are of the color black? Wait. What about all of the politicians and the legislatures who are Latino? Oh, wait. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. What about all of the family men and women who were the children of Japanese Americans and Asians? Whoa. Wait. Whoa. What about somebody called Martin Luther King Jr.? What about the woman who started it all at the back of the bus and refused to do what society wanted her to do? What about all those black only bathrooms, black only drinking faucets, white only bathrooms, white only drinking faucets? What do we do in 2016? The audacity of our left-wing, liberal, ridiculous California educational system that we pay for is creating built-in segregation and discrimination and racism and bigotry right from the get-go in young minds. Well, if that's the case, okay, I'm all for it. Hey, if you can't fight them, join them. I think that we should have right across the street a dormitory for just people with the last name of Gonzalez. Yeah, just Gonzalez. And they have to have brown eyes. Yes, yes, yes. And I think right next to that, you can only have a dormitory for people who are of Asian descent in their DNA. That's it. Just a dormitory for Asians because they want to study Asian studies. And the Latinos want to study only Latinos and Chicano studies, right? I think that we should have a dormitory right down yonder at the end of the block for people who only like to wear boxer shorts. Yeah, only boxer shorts. Okay? I think right across the street, we should have a place, a dormitory for people that absolutely uh, are completely people that will never learn how to speak German. Okay, that's the never learn how to speak German dormitory. I think that we should have a dormitory for people like me who are French, Italian, Spanish, Mexican, Scot, and Irish. We're going to call that dormitory the 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 Holy Grail dormitory of soup. That's right. If we're going to do this, then let's do it right. Let's just chop everything that's been done for the last 60 years and just let's go back and separate everybody and have their own special study place with their own special kind. Yes, that's what I think. It is absurd what the California educational system has turned into. It is absurd that segregation in the year 2016 so blatantly is done in front of all of our faces, hidden under the idea and the ideology that it's some study program. It is absurd. It is not only absurd, it's shameful. And it's not only shameful, it is absolutely against everything that America stands for and that many people have died and shed their blood and tears for and worked very hard and given their lives to changing in this country. We are a mixture of, we're like minestrone soup. We're like menudo. We're like gumbo. That's who Americans are. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. And we learn the ideology of what it is to be an American. An American. America first. Not some dormitory that some punk kids want to be in because they're a certain color, race, creed, or religion. What kind of crap is that? And how dare the administrators allow that to take place in their backyards? They're preaching social disorder on a grand scale. They're preaching social dysfunction on a grand scale. They're preaching a disastrous concept that will lead to nothing more but hate, that will lead to nothing more but fear, that will lead to nothing more but no communication. If that continues, we're going to have a society that is going to be completely segregated from one another. And that's not what America is about. Bothers me so much that they would allow that to happen in this country in 2016. That act itself is the most racist, discriminatory, bigoted, and any other word you can add to it, act against the cosmopolitan mixture of Americans. Just another example of the further destruction under a politically correct society that Donald Trump talks very heavily in a negative way about. But Hillary Clinton loves politically correct. Where are we going to allow our school system to do that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Shame, shame, shame. And you know something? I'm going to do everything I can to fight that, because that's wrong. You go to school to learn how to communicate and learn how to exchange ideas and to learn how to have a mind and to learn how to discuss things and to learn how to get together and to learn about what this country is and how we became strong and how together we work. Together everybody achieves more in a team environment, not a separated, segregated environment. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I got to tell you, Martin Luther King Jr.'s got to be turning in his grave. Got to be. And anybody who's fought that, Cesar Chavez for the farm workers in Central California who are basically all Mexican. Anybody who's fought for civil rights has got to be against that. And if they're not, they're friggin' crazy. All right, so as we move on and talk about a couple of more things here on the Jesse T Show, we're live at 5 right here, and you've entered the world according to Torero. And it's good to have you along, and we always invite you to check us out every day, Monday through Friday, from 5 to 6, as you're straight on the point at www.thepowerofvoices.com. And hopefully, we're going to have Admiral Kubik check in here in a few short minutes. He's in between interviews. One of them is with Anderson Cooper.
He's on the line now.
Pardon me?
He's on the line now.
Well, let's bring him up right now. Admiral Kubik, how are you, sir?
Hello.
Hi, Admiral. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jesse. How are things out in L.A.?
Well, they are crazy, Admiral. We just talked about a story that the California university system is now allowing segregated dormitories on their campuses so that if you decide you only want to be in an African American dormitory that's the way they're going, that you have the right to do that now on a California university campus. And it just blows my mind, all the people who work so hard for civil rights.
Are we going backwards, Jesse? That sounds backwards to me.
I mean, I just don't understand it. I just talked about the story for about 25 minutes, the segregating young people's minds and young people's thoughts. I mean, it is unbelievable the direction that our educational system here in California has taken. It's this political correctness has to stop. And that's what Donald Trump talks about, and I alluded to that, this political correctness, this sidestepping of issues under very, very fancy words that are colorful but mean absolutely nothing.
This sounds like more than political correctness to me, Jesse. This sounds a lot like political brainwashing, trying to get people to feel like the only place they can be safe or whatever is in a segregated dorm, and it's just going to be used to make bigger divides and to create more crises. I think it smacks of brainwashing to do something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting, but that's what it sounds like.
I don't think, I tell you, you're not overreacting, and because it absolutely smacks of that. America is a place where people can come and commingle into one society with one concept, and that is to make America great. America is number one, and that we relieve ourselves from our past, our forefathers that came from someplace else. They want to become part of this great nation and what it has become. And the civil rights movement a very important part of what has
Yeah.
made us strong in this country,
Well,
stronger than
you're.
any other country in the world. They want to take away from us. I don't
Well,
understand.
Well, I don't know if you heard today, but Mr. Trump was in Cleveland today at a charter school, talking about education and making that point about how important education is to unite us. And he's also proposing to actually create a $20 billion fund where inner city, kids who want to go to a charter school can basically get a grant, to get them started in the school of their choice. Because he sees this as really key towards breaking both the cycle of poverty and the violence in the inner city, and he's putting a lot of effort into it, and had a really good talk and speech in Cleveland today.
One of the things here in California, we have, well, the whole nation is under the Department of Education and Common Core, and this Common
Right.
Core has got to go. And one of the things here in California, under recently in the last 10 to 15 years, is the creation and the maturity of charter schools. We had just a couple of years ago about 6,000 charter schools in the state of California. Now we're up to 8,000, and
Oh,
all of the
wow.
parents and teachers are so excited because they can adjust the education that each child needs. They don't have to follow this common core crap. That's what I call it.
Well,
And
what it does, Jesse. It's trying to bring everybody to the same level of mediocrity. The kids who can read and do math quicker, they get held back, and the kids who need a little bit of extra help, they don't get that help because they're just trying to hit the low ball average, with that, and it's really messing things up.
So you were out with the Commander in Chief programming last night. I thought that was a great concept. I would like to see that done at every presidential election, and I thought it was a great idea that they put together. It gave great contrast right there for the first time between the two candidates. What was your take on that, Admiral?
Well, I was watching it with a bunch of vets here in Virginia Beach, both pro Trump and pro Hillary. I think that it was very, very clear when you saw the two of them, even though they weren't on the stage together, that Hillary was defensive, that she was when she was unscripted, she got to be even angry at points in time, and then Trump came out, and he looked like the president. He had the right stature, the right demeanor. He answered the questions. Now, they couldn't get into a lot of detail because they didn't have a lot of time, but I think the optics of it were very, very clear. We have someone who is really on the decline and has created quite a mess in the world. And we have Donald Trump, who's a guy who comes in and fixes things and solves problems. And he realizes that the people who have created the mess can't fix it. And so he's basically saying, hey, he's the only guy that can do this, and particularly when it comes to making the military stronger. At the end of it, some of the vets that were there, I asked them what they thought. They said they were, being Navy guys, some of them, they said they were ready to stand up at attention, say aye, aye, sir, and salute, and go off and basically do whatever the commander-in-chief was asking them, because he really, I think, hit a home run last night.
The interesting thing about the military aspect in this is earlier in the day, he had the speech about his military program,
Right.
rebuilding the United States military. He had his platform there, and he talked about it pretty extensively. And one of the things that I found interesting about that is the sheer numbers of ships that we don't have. And it dawns on me, how can you patrol the seven seas with the kind of might that we have to do to make sure that America is protected with only less than 300 ships? How could
Well,
that possibly be?
and it's the numbers are really worse than that. Jesse. Right now we have 276 ships in the Navy. The Navy has said we need 308. Years ago when John Lehman was building his the fleet, we were shooting for 600 and almost got there. But even in those 576 ships, a lot of them need to be replaced. A lot of them need major upgrades, not just for the basic, the shipboard mechanics and all of that, but the technology. And what we're finding is that we're at an inflection point. For the last 25 years, we've had complete dominance on the technology, the radar, the cyber warfare, the targeting, and all of that. And now we've got peer competitors, particularly in Russia and China. And if we don't put some money into the existing fleet, there's 276 ships. We're not going to have them, 10 years from now. And the ones we do have are going to be obsolete technologically. And the problem is, and Mr. Trump pointed this out, is the sequestration, where the defense budget's 1/6 of the national budget, but took 50% of the hit. And what the Navy is saying is, if we don't relieve the sequestration, there's no way we're going to be able to even get to 308 ships, and we'll probably have problems refitting the cruisers. We have 22 cruisers that are included in that 276, and that would get us down to 254 if we lose the cruisers. So it's a real big problem, and it's not one that Hillary Clinton's going to solve. It's going to take Donald Trump to go there, realign the budget, and really push, for a expansion not only of the Navy, but the Army, Air Force, and Marines are hurting.
Yeah,
as well.
one of the things that he brought up to attention on this was the amount of brigades that we have in our Army and our Marines, but not just the amount of brigades being less than it was historically over the last 15 or 20 years, but the availability of even those brigades being up to fighting material right now at this moment was only about a third. That is a number that should put fear in everybody's spine, because ultimately you have to have a fighting force, and for if you don't have a fighting force on the ground that can compete literally
Right.
with your enemy, how do we prevail?
Well, the good news in this is that the troops we have now on active duty are the best ever. They are experienced, they're motivated. Now, the morale is hurt a little bit by some of the things that are happening, particularly in the politically correct military, but they're good troops. The problem is their equipment is been worked hard for the last 15 years, and it needs to be replaced. And the training, even the training dollars have been cut, because of sequesters, so they don't get out to train as much. And so we've got to do that before these young men and women get so discouraged that they leave. Because that's the good news. We're as strong as ever. We still have an advantage over our peer competitors, but over the next 4 years we'll lose that advantage unless we get Donald Trump in there as our commander-in-chief.
Now, the questions that Matt Lowry was asking last night were he's coming under fire that the questioning was not adequate enough to that he should have been asking the two representatives of both parties under the commander-in-chief program.
Right.
But one of the things that came out of it is that with Donald Trump, a lot of people are saying today that, well, he really put down the military and the generals because he said, basically, we're going to let a lot of generals go that aren't up to par. And as an admiral, how do you take that? How do you feel about what they're saying, what he said, and what he actually meant?
Well, yeah, I think there's a couple of things here. I think part of what he was saying is that these generals were reduced to rubble, and we really saw the generals, the admirals put in a tough spot these last 8 years. Those who were giving advice that wasn't heeded, they had a choice. They could speak up, and then many of them did and were basically retired or fired. And those who said, hey, I'm going to make the best of it as I can and live to fight another day, they got marginalized. And so what Donald Trump is saying, he's going to go to his generals, he's going to rely on them, but he's going to put good generals in there and good admirals there. And, as a military guy, I've known my entire career, particularly when you're in command, you serve at the pleasure of the next higher person up your chain of command. If they lose confidence in you, it comes with the territory. They're going to move you on to something else or move you out. And I think what Donald Trump is saying is he's going to find the good generals. He has tremendous confidence, in as I do, in General Joe Dunford, our chairman. And I think if these guys get the handcuffs taken off of them, you'd be surprised how quickly things will turn around under a commander-in-chief who respects them and appreciates them and is going to listen to them.
One of the items that came up is we're signposting or we're broadcasting out what our plans are to defeat our enemy and to defeat ISIS. And Hillary Clinton was talking about the secret plan that Donald Trump had, this so-called secret plan, but yet she talks about what she's not going to do and broadcast that out to the world.
Well,
We're not going to put troops up.
I about fell off my chair when I heard that, Jesse, because you know what she did? She drew an inverted red line. Rather than drawing a line that Assad shouldn't cross, she drew a line that she won't cross. She took that option off the table, basically using her judgment without even talking, to the generals. And then she said she's going to convene this week a group of very senior advisors. Well, heck, she's already got the plan. What are they going to advise on? I mean, this was craziness. You never take options off the table. And as for Mr. Trump's plan, he's actually just rolling it out. There's not a new plan. Part of his plan always was to bring the generals in to help develop at the operational level the plans that were necessary to execute his, strategic intent, his commander's intent, and then develop the courses of action so that the troops and the fleet could execute this, at the tactical level. So it's the same plan, and he's rolling it out and giving more details, but he's very clear. A lot of this stuff is going to remain classified. We're not going to telegraph
And rightfully so, Admiral, because can you imagine in World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our president, going on a fireside chat on radio, because that was the technology of the day, letting the American public know about Eisenhower's plans and MacArthur's plans and all the fine generals, Patton's plans, and all the generals about D-Day and what was about to happen. Can you imagine that being broadcasted out amongst the world?
No, absolutely. And the same thing when we were, looking to invade Iraq in 2003. Jesse, we had a top secret plan for how we were going to do it, and we exercised at the secret plan level. And even the troops themselves didn't know exactly what was going to happen until we were within days, of invading, because we wanted to keep it quiet, and we did. And it was a big surprise when all of a sudden we launched a simultaneous air-ground assault without the same, preparatory bombing, and it caught Saddam flat-footed. But we weren't going to broadcast that. And
I've always been a part of the idea that we as Americans living in this country as citizens, we have a right to know everything that we need to know. But there are some things that we don't need to know.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's not because you're not eligible for that information. It's because it's for the good of the country, Jesse, that we have, and for the safety of the troops. If you get, we used to say, loose lips sink ships, and that's true. Yep. And so some of this has to be kept, and that's why we have a classification system. Which again, I don't know how Secretary Clinton, as the President of the United States, could ever enforce any sort of classified discipline after what she's done to basically expose her classified material to the world.
Well, wait a minute now. Wait a second, Admiral. Let me explain this to you. You have to understand. Now, you're going to enter my world, the world according to Torero. Okay? It's just me, Jesse T. I'm going to explain this. Yes, it's my world now, and I'm going to explain this to you. I know you've been a general and an admiral, and you've served our country with an exemplary career and not a mark against it. But let me explain something to you, okay? All right.
Okay.
Here's what it's all about. Here's why she can be trusted with classified material. Okay. Here's why. She won't do the loose lips sink ships thing. Here's why. Because she doesn't know the word classified. The C that starts in the beginning of the word classified, she's not sure what the C stands for. The C could stand for classic. The C could stand for classy. The C could stand for cat. It could stand for charbroiled hamburgers. It could stand for cars. The C, you see, it's the C that she doesn't see. So do you see?
I think it stands for confused. Is what I think it stands for.
You got it. You see, Admiral. You see it clearly because you understand the C.
Right.
World according to Torero right there.
Yeah, very good. Well, that's good. No, and we joke about it a little bit here, but this is deadly serious stuff.
Oh,
We
come
we
on,
just we just had
absolutely, sir.
we just had a sailor who did wrong. He was on a nuclear submarine, and he took some pictures, down below decks in the submarine because he wanted to show his mom when he went home on leave, and he never showed them to anybody. They never left the submarine or his camera, but someone found out that he had violated regulations, and basically all those pictures were classified. And even though it had never gone anywhere, he ended up getting a year in prison, on a court
Well,
martial.
I'm
And
glad you brought that up because something that we argue here all the time on the Jesse T show is this two-tiered legal system. You have this
right,
two-tiered legal system. You have a legal system for the socially wealthy elite power brokers of the world. Then you have the legal system that everybody else must follow, and that they get the tough stick. But people like Clinton for 40 years, the Clintons have been violating all kinds of rules, but yet they skirt in this two system legal entity
right.
that we live in. How can you have a seaman on a submarine get thrown in jail because he did something wrong, but yet you can't have a presidential candidate who's just been proven over and over and over that she lies and she misplaces information, she leaks stuff, yet nothing can be done to her.
You know, and it, it, Absolutely, Jesse. I think you hit the nail on the head. What we have is we have a ruling class, elite ruling class, and then we have the people. And I think that's what's happening in this election. It's no longer Republican versus Democrat. It's the people versus the ruling elite of both parties. And that's what this election is about. It's about overthrowing that two-tiered system and holding our leaders accountable. And not only does she get away with basically things that others would go to jail for. I mean, the worst part of this was when she met the parents of the men that were killed in Benghazi, and she looked them in the eye, the mothers, the fathers, and lied to them. I mean, how can you have a commander in chief who would look into the eyes of a mother who had lost her son and lie to that person about what happened, and still feel that she was qualified to be the president? I think people who are on the edge, maybe they think that Mr. Trump has some weaknesses, maybe they think that he's not exactly their guy, and they aren't 100% sure about Secretary Clinton either. They need to look at that and say, who would you want to tell you the truth? Would you believe, Hillary Clinton if she looked you in the eye, or would you believe Donald Trump? And I can tell you that's one thing he's not bashful about, and that's speaking out and telling the truth.
Well, there is one thing about Donald Trump, and his brashness is a bold statement of the type of man that he is and has always been. Unfortunately, in my lifetime, I can speak to my lifetime. I've seen
Sure.
America change from a country that speaks to the straightness of an idea or the straightness of somebody's act. There was very little gray zone between right and wrong, to a country where the gray zone has really
Right.
increased. And I believe that in part has happened because of the political correctness that I, 56 years old, have had to grow up in for the last 35 to 40 years of my life. This political correctness jargon has brainwashed, literally, my generation to some degree, but certainly the millennial or the next generations. And a guy like this who comes out, who kind of harkens to somebody that is a little different than the norm today, people don't quite understand, and they see it in a way in which that might be taken offensively, but it really isn't given that way. That's
Yeah.
my opinion about that.
Well, I think you're right, and I think Mr. Trump also realizes when he was running for the nomination had 16 opponents, and he had to basically get his message out. Sometimes he had to talk maybe a little bit overly brusque or overly sharply to get his message out. But I think what he's done now is he's now moving on. He's the nominee. He's put out speech after speech with very solid policy. He's learned how to modulate, his demeanor, his message, his tone, just the same way Ronald Reagan did. Ronald Reagan,
Right.
I worked for him for 2 years. He could go, in the morning and comfort, grieving families who had lost, soldiers or Marines or whomever, and then turn around in the mid-afternoon and, meet with, business leaders and start driving, his economic agenda, and then go to the Congress at night and pound on the podium when he was trying to get his tax plan through. And each time he was a different person. And I think it's one of the traits of a leader that you have to be able to adapt your bearing to the audience, to the situation, to your message. And sometimes you have to be very compassionate, and sometimes you have to be really tough. And I think that's what we need in a leader. I think in Hillary Clinton's standpoint, all you know is that she's going to be talking a party line and saying things that benefit her, whether they hurt America or not.
Well, I agree with you, Admiral. And under the Obama administration for the last 8 years, his idea of hope and change, hope and change, hope and change, we certainly got the change. And all that Clinton is going to bring is a hope. I want to see some concreteness. I want to see, this is what I'm going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And it's going to get done. And if it doesn't work, we're going to do this and make an adjustment, but we're going to win. We're going to win, and we're going to do something great again.
That's what you're seeing, even in his foreign policy and other things. Donald is the master of the art of the deal, but politics is said to be the art of the possible. What you're seeing in Donald Trump is he's working to blend the art of the deal and the art of the possible. In some cases, he'll go and he's trying to get a negotiation going. He'll take a very, very strong position. And then he waits for a reaction, and now he's looking for a win-win. And whether this be with China, with Russia, or here within the political parties in the United States, he's always looking for a win-win if he can get it. And I think this is very different for people because he's, like I said, he's approaching this not from the political side, but from the business side, but then he's blending it back into the art of the possible. And I think that's what's got a lot of people confused. They think he keeps changing back and forth. All he's doing is trying to move us all closer to a deal.
Yeah, when he first started running, I've had the book Art of the Deal when it first was published, and I bought that and I read that book. I wore one of them out. I read it so much as a young guy in the real estate business, trying to make my way. Sure. And I'm still a real estate broker, loan broker, but and then I put it aside and picked it up 8 years later and put it aside and picked it up again. But when he started running, I picked up the book again out of the library at the house, and I briefly read the whole thing, and I said, I've been watching his campaign right along, and I said this to so many people. I said, all he's really doing is following his book, The Art of the Deal.
Absolutely.
He is following his book almost verbatim.
Because his book is him, and this is his life. This is who he is, and it's different. Just like we've had, each of our presidents has been, a little different. In the case of Donald Trump, he's not wedded just to the party. He's really trying to be the president of everyone and reaching out. Some people may not come his way, but he's still reaching out to them, and that's why we got this, the stark differences between people, because so many folks feel like they have to be aligned with their party regardless of who's running, because they feel like the party is going to take care of them, or the party, agrees with them, and they're not stopping and looking and saying, well, maybe my party isn't exactly right on this one particular election, and it's time to start looking at other options.
Well, there are a lot of undecisives this year, like there never has been before. And there's a kind of two categories of undecisives. One that are just undecisive, they just don't know which way to go, and ones that are Republicans that are undecisive in terms of whether or not, because he is so different, he is so out of the box in terms of the normal conservative Republican platform in that respect. But definitely this election is going to be one on the undecisives. And it's obvious because in a lot of the nationwide polls right now, he has gained so many percentage points. And those are undecisives that are
Yep.
moving towards that direction. So, in that respect. But, Admiral, what was your take and your feeling at the end of the presentation last night and the commander in chief, as a commander that you were and have been and are today? What is your take on the overall feel in that respect?
You mean of the event, or
Yeah,
or
of the event and
you
how
know,
people are reflecting on it.
I walked away from it. I was a little bit concerned at how the host would run it, how the questions would come, and how much of it would be, letting the people in the audience ask questions. I came away feeling like the format was pretty good. That the questions were tough to both parties, and I came away, better than I thought it would be. And I was surprised to see all the people, dumping on Matt Lauer because they said he didn't do right by Hillary Clinton. But I thought he was tough on both of them. I think that Hillary Clinton used up a lot of her time just trying once again to come up with a new story about her emails, and that got her less time for other things. But I thought the group that I was with on both sides thought it was a good event, and it really is just kind of a spring season game here before the real season starts here at the end of the month. But I think that Mr. Trump is showing that he looks presidential now, and I think Hillary looks like she's afraid. So all in all, I was pretty pleased with the way the event went.
Well, I appreciate you checking in with us. I know you have a busy media schedule, and you're off and running every day. So, Admiral Kubik, everybody, served in the United States Navy for a long time and had a wonderful career. And we're so proud to have you on our show, thepowervoices.com, and representing our veterans and our troops today, Admiral. Really appreciate your time, sir.
Hey, yeah, and we can probably get together again in a couple of weeks, Jesse. Okay.
Absolutely. Let's stay in touch. I love your firsthand approach to this, and from a military point of view, it's really refreshing, and it's a lot of knowledge that a lot of folks, regular folks like myself, we don't always get a chance to hear. So really, absolutely appreciate it, and we'll touch bases in a couple of weeks, and happy trails, as they used to say.
Thanks, Jesse. You take care. Adios.
Okay, thanks a lot. Admiral Kubik, everybody. Admiral Kubik right here on the Jesse T Show, and live at 5 Monday through Friday. As we come to the end of the show, it's good to have you along with us, and we are here straight on the point, giving you different ideas and different points of view as to what things are. I will say that, Hillary Clinton, the commander in chief, I didn't think she did too bad of a job. I think she represented herself quite well in her platform. The thing that I did like is the separation of the two people. And as one of my peers say, that really what's going to come down to is who you trust the most. And that's really what it is going to come down to. This is the American way of bringing on a brand new president and voting a president. And we are so fortunate to live in a country that we can have this diversity of ideas and these types of talks, and yet still come out and have an understanding and come together at some point. Because after all, it is, in my opinion, America against the world. So goes America. So goes the world. That's the God's blue-green earth right here. This is the Jesse T Show, live at 5. And of course, always remember, get that app, download that app, so you can mainline to us. The Brown Beauty is off duty. See ya!